Mr. Patterson. As Mr. Patterson has introduced myself, my name is Cameron Boardman. I'm one of the administrators here at the City of Casey, and in the absence of our Chair of the Panel of Administrators, Noeline Duff, it is my privilege to be chairing this council meeting this afternoon. I would like to take the opportunity of introducing my fellow administrator, Mr. Miguel Belmar.
Good afternoon, Chair.
And can I also reintroduce our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Glenn Patterson, and around the table here, starting with those gentlemen to my right, Mr. Steve Coldham, the Director of Community Life, Mr. James Collins, the Director of City Planning and Infrastructure, Mr. Cole Road, the Senior Governance Support Officer, who is also the minute taker for this council meeting, and Ms. Jen Bednar, the Director of Customer and Corporate Services. Assisting us is Matthew Crane on AV, and all the other council staff and officers here assembled this afternoon. We do welcome you and thank you for your attendance and participation. I'll now read the Statement of Acknowledgement. The City of Casey proudly acknowledges the traditional owners, Casey's Aboriginal communities and their rich culture, pays respects to Elders past, present and future. We acknowledge Aboriginal people as Australia's first people and as the traditional owners and custodians on the land on which we work and live. We'll now read the diversity statement. The City of Casey is home to a remarkable diversity with many cultures, language, faiths and communities of worship, ages, LGBTQI+ identities, landscapes, together forming our rich and dynamic community story. From the first Australians to our recent arrivals and every wave between, the City of Casey welcomes and represents all community members and their respective ambitions to live healthily, rewarding and happy lives. We recognise this diversity is our strength and we aim to share, nurture and celebrate it. We'll move to the confirmation of the minutes. We have one set of minutes to be confirmed this afternoon, and that is for the council meeting which was held on the 21st of May 2024. Is there a mover of the minutes from the council meeting of the 21st of May?
Yes, I'll move those.
And in the absence of Ms Duff, I'm pleased to second the minutes of that meeting, and I'll ask all those in favour, and that is carried. Item number 3 is the declaration of interests. I have considered my obligations under Section 130 of the Local Government Act 2020. I do not have any conflicts of interest relevant to any item on the agenda papers this afternoon. Mr. Belmar, do you have anything to declare?
No, nothing to declare.
Could I ask council officers, including the Chief Executive Officer, if they have any items to declare? There are no items to declare. There was one public question submitted through Council's website for this afternoon's council meeting. The question reads, how does the council get authority to remove privately owned unregistered vehicles from the roadside, and do they sell them as abandoned vehicles at local auctions? If vehicles removed by council do go to auction, who gets the money from the sale? This was submitted by Mr. Paul Greenman, and an answer has been prepared, and I'll ask Mr. Steve Coleman, the Director of Community Life, to provide that answer.
Thank you for your question. Under Schedule 11 of the Local Government Act 1989, Council has authority to remove unregistered or abandoned vehicles. This means Council may or impound any unregistered vehicle or a vehicle considered to be abandoned, or sell, destroy or give away the vehicle and anything in the vehicle or attached to the vehicle if the owner has not paid the fee within 14 days of Council impounding the vehicle. Council has a contract in place to support the removal, storage and disposal of unregistered or abandoned vehicles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coldman, and also to Mr. Greenman for submitting the question. We'll now move to item 5 on the agenda, that is the consideration of officers' reports. There are 5 officers' reports for consideration in this open council meeting, and I'll move to agenda item 5.1, the CSO Growth and Attraction Framework. And is there a mover for this particular item?
Yes, I'll move this item.
Thank you, Mr. Belmar. I will second the item, and I'll invite Mr. Belmar to speak to this item.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight we are adopting the 2024-2027 Community Service Organisation Growth and Attraction Framework. It's an important document that we are adopting tonight because it represents and acknowledges the important work that's done by community service organisations, which are not-for-profit organisations with a governing body. In reviewing the papers tonight and in getting my coming to an understanding, a more thorough understanding of this framework, what was important for me was to understand the framework purpose as set out in the framework, and it is to develop a framework to establish the foundations for shared agreement and collective action so that community service organisations can grow both individually and collectively, and council decision makers know what to focus on and when to act. And the vision that is enshrined in this framework is, in partnership with community service organisations across Casey, our vision is that all community members will have access to the community services they need from agencies best placed to deliver them now and into the future. Fundamentally, what this framework does is it acknowledges the diverse nature of the community of Casey and the community service organisations, and ensures that within one document those organisations are able to come forward and see what strategies and frameworks we have to ensure their purposeful engagement with council, and to ensure that they are always best informed about what other opportunities exist for them to both advocate and for them also to be able to access all necessary services and funds that may be available for them. I know the guiding principles of the framework will be that it is partnership focused, that it will be about innovation and be future oriented, that it'll be needs based and also based on the best information, and also there'll be continuing review. I want to thank the members of the community that have engaged in putting this framework together. It's an important document. It will, as I said, guide work for a number of years, and I am very pleased to be moving this motion tonight.
Thank you, Mr Belmar. I appreciate your comments, a comprehensive review of the framework. In exercising my rights and seconding the resolution, I'll also make some very brief comments and note that this was a follow-up from a resolution that we made in the 16th of August 2022 council meeting, when we did resolve to redirect the budget from the former Retirement Villages Development Grant Program to a council community grant program for this financial year. And we, as administrators, have been fundamentally involved and informed on the development of this particular program, looking at an appropriate way that we could reallocate the previous Retirement Villages Development Grant Program to something that was meaningful, responsive and absolutely appropriate in the circumstances to meet the community's needs. As part of this program, expanding upon the framework that Mr Belmar has articulated, is to really get a better understanding of our community service organisations, those vital organisations that provide community services to socio-economic diverse communities, to communities that have other challenges, whether they're through refugee or other support service necessities, to understand how we as an organisation can better represent their requirements to provide investments and grants and other infrastructure for them to do their work and perform it better. But most importantly, to really provide the umbrella linkages to all of these support services so that the community as a whole functions much more effectively into the future. There are 4 goals attached to this framework around the local intersection data, really looking at the co-design aspects, so not just us being a top-down approach, working with the community to understand their needs and responsibilities, to really grow, to develop this sector, to attract sector organisations that aren't represented currently in Casey, to really get the high-functioning collaborative group of services so that we do meet all aspects of needs in the community. To increase the resources, undoubtedly, there is a number of challenges which this community do face, which are unique to the municipality, but also have a degree of underrepresentation currently attached to them. And also, and this is a critical part of a framework that Mr Belmar articulated, to really have a focus on continual evaluation and improvement. And all of these foundational aspects are captured in the framework, are captured in the plan, and one that, from an organisational whole perspective, we are very proud to endorse. I echo your comments, Mr Belmar, upon the work that has been completed by many members within not just the council staff itself, but within the community support and service organisation ecosystem, and we're very proud to be adopting this recommendation and looking forward to its full implementation and the successes that undoubtedly will be present and achieved in the future. With those words, I'm pleased to accept your moving of the recommendation, Mr Belmar. I will second the recommendation, and all those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. If I could now move to item 5.2, the Rainbow Action Plan, and if I could invite a mover of the recommendation.
Yes, I'm moving that.
Thank you, Mr Belmar. I will second the recommendation, and Mr Belmar, I'll invite you to speak to your resolution.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight I am very happy to move that Council endorse the Rainbow Action Plan 2024 to 2028. I just want to make some brief comments about the importance of this plan, and noting that it has come about through work of council officers and through approaches and feedback to council since 2022 that such a plan should be an appropriate one for this council to adopt. I want to note that it is not a legislative requirement that we have a Rainbow Action Plan, but it is best practice that an organisation as large and as diverse as the City of Casey show leadership and have a plan such as this. I also want to note, as set out in the papers, that this Rainbow Action Plan aligns with industry standards and community expectations, and that proposed community programs will undergo assessments, processes, and be supported to ensure that they are successful and have a safe delivery. In reading the plan, I want to commend the authors of the plan and those that have contributed to it. It is a very easy to use document. There can be little debate about what the plan is intended to achieve, what the plan is about, why the plan is an important one to have, and if I can just reflect on parts of that. Why is the Rainbow Plan important? In a very short answer, the Rainbow Plan plays a crucial role in ensuring that the rights and needs of our LGBTIQA+ community are recognised and addressed. It provides a roadmap for initiatives that promote inclusion, equality and protection from discrimination. And it's a fundamental, it's fundamental that a council like Casey have statements like that on the record to ensure that all members of the community at all times understand that this council represents all its residents. I want to note also the priority areas of the plan, and they are inclusion, leadership and safety. And I reflect that it is the first two of those seem like the sorts of things you'd always find in an action plan, but the third one, safety, is a reminder that it's fundamental to ensure that all members of the community feel safe and don't experience discrimination in the City of Casey. And perhaps a long-term goal is that that last one may not be required, but it's there and it will continue to be there into the future. So with those remarks and being grateful to those members of staff and those members of the community who have worked in putting this document together, I'm very happy to move this motion.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr Belmar, for your comprehensive analysis of the plan. And as seconder, I'll make some additional brief comments. I start by acknowledging that as part of the reason for developing this plan is that there's very limited data on the extent of the LGBTIQA+ community in Casey, which in itself is undoubtedly a justification for having a plan like this, but also to develop a framework where the organisation as a whole is engaging much more with this community to understand the specific requirements and develop interventions and actions which are not only unique and necessary to this community, but are absolutely and utterly responsive. And as part of the development, Mr Belmar, you did touch on the participation and contribution from staff here at Casey, and we talked specifically on the Rainbow Champions, a group internally focused to advise the organisation as a whole as to what we need to do to better represent their cohort and to provide support, services, awareness, and to just give that respect and value which is absolutely necessary through such a policy. We've also engaged with the Rainbow Advisory Group, an external group that equally has provided that feedback to us. There is acknowledgement that there are significant mental health, physical health, environmental and other challenges that affect this community. And first and foremost, and unless we are aware of those challenges and we are devising specific plans and responsive actions to address those challenges, then we're really not doing our job. It is crucial that we continue to maintain that level of engagement. It is something from all aspects of these types of communities, from our Reconciliation Action Plan to the Rainbow Action Plan to other community specifically focused plans and strategies we have at Council, that we continue that high level of engagement, involvement and two-way conversation to ensure that the information is flowed. We're aware of what we need to do as our obligations, and we're providing and developing responsive policies and programs. This is an example of such, and I echo your comments, Mr Belmar, that it is absolutely essential and vital in the circumstances. So with those comments, can I ask the administrators who are in favour of adopting this recommendation? That being the case, the recommendation is passed. Can I move to item 5.3, CT Contract 860, the asphalt resurfacing for various roads 2023-2024 extension, and I'll ask for a mover of the recommendation.
Yes, I'm happy to move that.
And I will second the recommendation, and Mr Belmar, I'll invite you to speak to your recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm smiling as I move this recommendation because we move from fundamental human rights to asphalt resurfacing, which just shows the variety of issues that we deal with at the City of Casey. I'm moving the recommendation that Council approve a one-year extension option for contract CT 000860, asphalt resurfacing for various roads 2023-24, and increase the maximum value of the contract to $20 million, including GST. I have considered the documents, and I note in particular the awarding of this contract to R&C Asphalt Paving Pty Ltd, and that there is a very good financial reason for an increase. They are set out in the papers. They include increases in the inputs for asphalt, and noting also that the provider has agreed to a pricing adjustment for the program, with a new pricing to commence from 1 July 2024. Attached to the papers tonight is a list of asphalt works, and I note that they refer to both rehabilitations, overlays, and also others that have approved grant funding contribution. And I note that the works are occurring throughout the municipality, and it is a good process to ensure that at all times we're able to meet the liabilities for this type of work and ensure that we don't fall behind because of issues related to contracts not being kept up to date. So with those comments, and thanking those members of council who as always are ensuring that we are able to comply with our contractual obligations, and ensuring that those contracting with council are likewise able to meet their own obligations, I am happy to move this motion.
Thank you very much, Mr Belmar, and thank you for your explanation of the recommendation. I do note the list of asphalt works for 2024-2025, including rehabilitations and overlays, which you referenced. It is quite an extensive list, and from a council perspective, we apologise in advance for any inconvenience that will be caused to any members of the community whilst this vital work is undertaken. But as members of the public will see, it is an extensive list that covers the broad diversity geographically of the municipality, and one that is necessary to ensure that our roads and other infrastructure remains fit for purpose and meets community expectations. So we just put that on the record that we are being as transparent. We will communicate with any affected residencies and other businesses in the areas, and apologise in advance if there is an inconvenience as a consequence of it. But we're very much looking forward to working with the contractor to deliver these works in a timely manner. That being the case, can I ask all administrators who support the recommendation? It is carried. Can I move to item 5.4? It's the submission for the, let me rephrase that, it is the submission to the Plan for Victoria engagement, and I'll ask for a mover of the recommendation.
Yes, thank you. Tonight I'm moving the recommendation that...
Before I ask you to speak to your recommendation, I'll just ask a seconder, and of course in the circumstances that will be myself. Mr Belmar, could I ask you now to speak to your recommendation?
Apologies, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to move this motion, and I'm moving the following motion. The Council endorses the draft submission generally in accordance with Attachment 1 for the Victorian Government engagement on the Plan for Victoria strategy. I note that the strategy or the submission that we are adopting tonight is a response to high-level strategic work that is being done by the Victorian Government with respect to the ongoing challenge which is created by the need to provide sufficient housing. I note that in 2017 the Victorian Government adopted a document called Plan Melbourne 2017 to 2050, which had a particular focus in established areas, and as a consequence of that particular focus and a requirement to reorient and further consider strategic work with respect to housing, in September 2023 the Victorian Premier announced the Victorian Housing Statement, and that identified 5 categories to increase housing, and it also identified that it wanted to undertake further strategic work and called for submissions, which is what this document that we're adopting tonight seeks to do. I note, and I want to thank the members of Council who have worked on this document. The document has been prepared in a fashion such that it responds to the domain strategies that have been adopted by this Council in its current cycle, and noting also the very particular circumstances of the City of Casey, being the most populous municipality in Victoria, with a current population in excess of 410,000 people and forecast to grow to 574,000 by 2046. So we are living day to day the challenges of housing strategy, and I note that the submission includes responses at a high level to issues such as the following: unlocking housing supply, activity centres and employment land, prioritising delivery of key public transport investment, including the Clyde Rail Link and a broad bus network reform, improving mechanisms to achieve social and affordable housing, improving coordination for the planning, provision and funding of regional level infrastructure, changing policy and encouraging investment in canopy cover on government-owned land, implementing regulatory change and reviewing funding mechanisms in support of sustainability and climate resilience in the realms of energy, water and biodiversity, And finally, ensuring equity and inclusion is better embedded within economic development and planning systems. There really can be no better summary of the kind of challenges that are faced. And I note that the manner in which our draft submission addresses those, it is across the board. It identifies that there are issues to do with land supply, that land supply isn't only the answer. There needs to be a response that also embeds public transport. There needs to be a response that also identifies and addresses issues to do with housing affordability. And finally, and no less importantly, the plan and our submission puts forward our policies with respect to the environment and sustainability. And for example, something which may seem pedestrian, such as tree cover, we know from briefings that we have and also from material that is in the media, that something as simple as, well, not as simple, but the challenge of tree cover is something which can aid in not only providing more space for people to enjoy themselves, but also assist in reducing ambient temperature. So they're the sorts of issues that are now being addressed in this plan statewide, rather than being focused only on the metropolitan area. It's an important strategic piece of work, and I am happy to move this motion this evening.
Thank you, Mr Belmar. I endorse all your comments, and I appreciate the extensiveness of the comments you've just made in relation to the recommendation. I note that the submission on first draft may appear somewhat brief. The matters contained within this particular submission and the specific issues that you have addressed, Mr Belmar, around the comprehensiveness of what's contained within the Plan for Victoria and all of the challenges and complexities that affect this municipalities, it's really only a very brief snapshot due to the specific nature of the submission in responding to specific questions that the state government is seeking those responses, and the limited number of words that we can respond to. But a day does not go past within this organisation where we are dealing with all of the issues that is contained within this submission, not just as it relates to current land use, current infrastructure requirements, the availability of recreational land, commercial land, activity centres, employment land, prioritisation of future projects, looking at the mechanisms to achieve additional housing, both through current stock, future stock needs, social and affordable housing, what's required from planning, from decision-making, other infrastructure considerations at the regional end and also at a broader level. The policy, you spoke very specifically around the canopy cover, which is such a significant part of the challenges that this municipality and other municipalities have. It really is only a snapshot of the fundamental comprehensiveness of the consideration that everyone within this organisation deals with on a daily basis. And due to the limitations that we have in responding, as I said, it may appear a very brief submission, but that is unfortunately part of the restrictions that's imposed through the consultation process, but one in which I think we have, as best as we possibly can in the circumstances, covered all those aspects of economic development, environmental and sustainability, health, well-being, equality and infrastructure considerations now and into the future. From an administrative perspective, we have discussed the submission and all of those contributing factors extensively. It does capture our strategic inputs into the current council plan and where we see the requirements and the considerations that will undoubtedly be the responsibility of a future council. But we're very much looking forward to how the state government receives ours and other submissions, how the future plan for Victoria further materialises, and the specific additional considerations and requirements that will be foisted upon us by the state government in this municipality and in the region into the future. With those words, I am pleased to accept your moving of the recommendation and my seconding of the recommendation, Mr. Belmar. I ask all those in favour. That recommendation is carried. Can I move to item 5.5, our final item on the council officers' reports, and this is the endorsement of the governance documents, and I'll ask for a mover of the recommendation as put for 5.5.
Yes, I will move 5.5.
And I will second the recommendation as put, and Mr. Belmar, I'll invite you to make any comments on this particular item.
Thank you, Chair. This matter is returning to us after being on public exhibition. It was last before a council meeting on the 16th of April 2024, and for my part I made extensive remarks at that time, and I don't intend to repeat myself. I do note that 2 written submissions were received in response, specifically to do with the governance rules. I note that each of the 2 submissions dealt specifically with topics to do with the governance rules and matters such as the pre-council meetings, the moving of amendments, public question time and council minutes. It is good to see the community engaging with the governance rules because they are going to be the rule book for a newly elected council. Again, as I said, I don't want to repeat myself, but it's fundamental that anyone standing for council or anybody intending to engage with council meetings is fully conversant with these rules, and we will ensure that the City of Casey in the future will be properly governed, and these governance rules will assist in that occurring. I also note the Section 6 instrument. There are a number of Section 6 instrument documents attached to the minutes, to the papers this evening. It's fundamental, and we often adopt these kind of documents. The Section 6 instrument is a reference to an instrument of delegation for members of staff under the relevant acts referred to in the delegations. And I just want to reflect and confirm, as I often do, that these sorts of documents appear sometimes to be a little pedestrian and difficult to read, but it is important and fundamental that at all times the appropriate delegations exist under the empowering legislation. And I want to thank those members of staff who take the time to ensure that at all times the City of Casey is undertaking its role with the proper delegations in place. And with those comments, I'm happy to move this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Belmar. I endorse your comments. Acknowledge that we have spoken quite comprehensively on the governance documents at a number of past council meetings, specifically in relation to the involvement that ourselves as the panel of administrators have had in the development and drafting of these governance rules. I do want to commence some very brief comments in relation to the S6 instrument that you referred to, Mr. Belmar. It is an extraordinarily comprehensive document that does evaluate and effectively audit every individual who has statutory responsibilities in this organisation. That in itself is a monumental task to ensure that we have the right people with the right qualifications in the right positions that are abiding by their statutory responsibilities so that we can meet all our obligations under, for example, the Planning Environment Act and associated legislation. And it should be acknowledged, as you have, Mr. Belmar and I further acknowledge this, that the compliance aspect of that is by itself quite a significant task, and we do not in any way understate or take lightly the effort involved. So thank you to the council staff who are involved in ensuring that the S6 and the S11 instruments are updated and monitored accordingly. I don't wish to make specific comments as stated around the governance rules, except to fully endorse comments that yourself, Mr Belmar, I and Ms Duff has made in the past, that the governance rules must be read by any potential council candidate and must be fully endorsed, understood and abided by any future councillor in this place. We, as administrators, have been quite meticulous in trying to get the balance between what is a practical set of procedural rules, what deals with conduct and behavioural related matters, but also provides a blueprint for conduct of individuals to meet community and statutory expectations. And I would like to say that we've achieved that balance, irrespective that there is significant substance and detail to the governance rules, none of which in any way undermines the effort involved, but certainly endorses the expectations from any individual who will be occupying these seats post-October and their obligations to not just the organisation but the community as a whole. It is deliberately detailed to ensure that these council meetings run effectively, that the business of council is equally as effective and productive and as statutory adhering as it possibly can, but most importantly, that individuals who occupy the seats as councillors understand and, as I've said a number of times, meet their obligations. We could not be more direct and profound than that every individual who will be sitting around this table in October has to absolutely abide by the expectations and the contents within the governance rules themselves. Mr Belmar did make reference to the community consultation, and we do thank those two submitters. There is a number of matters that have been addressed by council officers, particularly as it relates to clarifications and procedural matters, and I trust that they have been addressed to the satisfaction of the submitters themselves. But can I conclude by saying again the comprehensive and extensive process that this has been for many people within the organisation, ourselves included, and I firmly place on the record our appreciation to those. Now that we are endorsing the governance rules and the S6 instrument of delegations, it is critical that anybody who is putting their name forward to be considered for election in October understands their obligations and fully appreciates the duties that are expected upon them if they are successful in their election. By saying that is that if any council candidate requires further clarification or assistance with this, then there are support services and information channels within the organisations to assist, and that is part of the offer that we do provide to council candidates to act as an information flow to ensure that we are communicating our expectations not just on a statutory basis but importantly equally on an organisational basis. So with those comments and with your comments, Mr Belmar, I'm happy to move the recommendation as, well, happy to endorse your moving of the recommendation as put and ask for all those in favour. And that is carried. That concludes officer reports, agenda item 5 for this evening's council meeting. I will move on to consideration of reports of committees. And I note the reports of committees are listed at the agenda papers, and I also note the records of discussions also listed in the agenda papers. I will move to item 7. There are 2 petitions. Petition 1 is a proposed mobile phone tower, Ramley Springs Reserved in Clyde North. The petition was received with 5 signatures by Mark Cravino for this council meeting for the proposed mobile phone tower, as I've said, in Ramley Springs Reserve, Clyde North. And I note that there will be a response from the Acting Manager Growth and Investment who will contact the head petitioner directly in relation to this particular matter. There is a second petition. It concerns the planned location of new public toilets within Berwick Springs wetland reserves. This petition was received with 192 signatures, forwarded by Vicky Giannakis for this council meeting in relation to the location of the new public toilets, as I've said, the Berwick Springs wetland reserves. And I'd like to make these comments in relation to this particular petition. Firstly, on behalf of the panel, on behalf of the whole council, we do thank you very much for the time that you have taken to present your petition. As a local resident in the nearby area, we absolutely understand and accept your petition today. This matter has been brought to our attention a number of times, and we have fully considered all of the issues that have been presented, not just in your position, but around this particular matter. Specifically, when considering a suitable location for public toilets in our open spaces, there are a number of factors that need to be taken into consideration. These include the size of the parks, the proximity to nearby facilities such as playgrounds, and the number of people who will visit or use the park. This particular area, Berwick Springs Wetland Reserves, is considered a high priority for a public toilet as it's at district level open space. So let me just repeat that. It's a district level open space. It services a 1 megalitre catchment in a suburban area. It has a range of facilities and infrastructure within the reserve that cater to people of all ages and abilities, and it encourages them to spend a longer amount of time in the reserve. Also, as this location is a destination that people visit to spend time with their friends, their families, and others to enjoy the outdoors, it's undeniable that there is a greater reliance on public amenities in this location, such as public toilets. In selecting a final location for the public toilets at Berwick Springs Wetland, the council completed 2 rounds of community engagement to ensure that the most suitable location was chosen. And based upon the results of this extensive community engagement and with support from the wider community, council has decided to progress with the chosen location given the demonstrated need of the broader community and, as I've said, the undeniable benefit for reserve users. We acknowledge the perceived safety concerns raised in the petition. We would like to highlight that the toilet has been designed to provide a safe and functional space for reserve users. Operationally, the standard level of maintenance across existing facilities is 3 cleans per week, which will be closely monitored by the council. There is an ability to increase the cleaning should it be required. So again, I would like to thank the petitioners. We do note the concerns that are contained within the petition. I do give you confidence that this matter has been raised with us as the panel administrators and all aspects around the petition has been considered. In the circumstances, the petition is noted, and I trust you acknowledge the explanation for that which I have just provided. I will move to agenda item number 8, late reports. There were no late reports for this council meeting. I'll move to agenda item number 9, urgent business. There's no urgent business for this council meeting. No items were received. I've just been reminded that I do need a mover and a seconder for the petition. That was item number 7.2, so it is an oversight on my behalf. I do apologise in that regard, but in regards to the petitions, may I have a mover and a seconder? I'll do these separately. Mover for petition number 1, that was the proposed mobile phone tower, Ramley Reserves in Clyde North. We are acknowledging the receipt of the petition. May I have a mover for the receipt of the petition?
Yes, I'll move it.
And that is seconded by myself. Any objections? That is carried. And in relation to petition number 2, item 7.2, the planned location of new public toilets within Berwick Springs Wetlands Reserve, can I have a mover acknowledging receipt of that petition?
I move receipt.
And that is second, and there is no objections. We acknowledge receipt of those petitions. I was up to agenda item number 9, urgent business. There was no urgent business items received for this council meeting. I'll move to agenda item number 10, closed council. There was no closed council reports for this council meeting, and agenda item 11 is the close of the council meeting. Before I formally declare this council meeting closed, I would like to note that a special council meeting has been called for 11 a.m. on this Monday, the 24th of June 2024 at the Bunjil Place Function Centre, which will include the adoption of the corporate suite of documents. So that being the case, I declare the council meeting formally closed. I thank members of the public who have joined us this afternoon in the public gallery, and I thank all of those who are watching the live stream afternoon, and I formally declare the close of the council meeting at 4:45 p.m. and thank you all again and good afternoon.